Today is day 1 of the final week of the challenge, and I've got 3 tomato projects going on here in the kitchen, and I'm probably not going to get them all done today on day 1 because I also have to work, but I have spent quite a bit of time cutting up my vegetables and making some juice that I'm going to can. And these with the peppers and onions, I'm going to make spaghetti sauce. I haven't canned that yet. These back here are going to be for tomato paste that we're going to make in the crock pot. So they've already been seeded and skinned and cored. These, all I did was cut those in halves and quarters. I left the skins on. And we're going to make a beautiful spaghetti sauce out of these. And tomato juice, all you do is get the juice and you put it in your water bath canner for about 20 minutes. You have to add lemon juice so that you keep the acidity up to a healthy standard. Okay, so I'll walk you guys through it with me as we go. So the first step in making tomato paste, once you have your tomatoes all seeded and skinned and cored, the whole idea is you have to get all of this liquid out. So I'm giving them a head start before we put them in the crock pot, and I'm just stewing them on the stove until they get soft and mushy. Then I'm going to drain that liquid. I'll can that liquid as a juice, and then we'll put the tomatoes that are left over in the crock pot. So I've taken my stewed tomatoes here and I've got them draining through my colander. And every now and then I give them a little push to get some of that liquid out of there, because that's the whole point. We want as much liquid out of here as we can get in order to make a paste. And I love canning and using this big pan that was my husband's grandmother's. And he said she used to keep it on the back porch for her tomatoes and her vegetables in her little gardens. So I think that's really special. I have some tomatoes over here I'm going to put out on the picnic table and let them ripen up a little more. And then these beauties over here I'm going to put in freezer bags, and they're going in the freezer. Because sometimes this winter, I may run out of one of the sauces, or the pizza sauce, or the barbecue sauce, or the spaghetti sauce, and I'll need to make some more, and I can just run out to the freezer, get a fresh tomato, put it under warm water, and core it, and skin it, and get rid of the seeds, and make another batch. I squeezed a lot of juice out of my tomatoes that I stewed, and now I'm going to put them in the blender so that they're nice and smooth, but I don't want them to be liquefied. I just want a pulp. Not even 2 beats of the blender, and I have this beautiful pulp. So now I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of sea salt, 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, and 2 tablespoons of olive oil. I'm going to stir that well. I've got my setting on low. I know it was hard to see you guys because my crock pot is camouflage. I know, it's a corny joke. Oh well. And I'm going to stir that real well. And I'm leaving it. I'm leaving it with the top off, because if I put the top on, it's going to condense liquids, and I don't want that. I want them to evaporate, so I'm going to leave the top off, leave this on low, and go to bed. And today I'm also going to make some sun-dried tomatoes in the dehydrator. Now, no, these aren't out in the sun, but do you know that the sun-dried tomatoes that you buy in the store are actually dehydrated? So that's what we're going to do. So what I did was I have parchment paper down here underneath the tomatoes that I sliced as thin as I could. I'm going to add some sea salt and some Italian seasoning to my tomatoes. Then I'm going to add a tray without anything. Then another tray with tomatoes, a tray without anything because I want the air to be able to circulate well in here and not be clogged up by tray after tray after tray of tomatoes. So I'm going to put that at 140 degrees for about 10 hours, and we will see what they look like when they're done. I used all mine. I absolutely love them. I put them in everything. And here are the beautiful sun-dried tomatoes that I did in my dehydrator. I love these. I use these in everything, in spaghetti sauce, in chili, tomato soup, and they really add a zest of tomato flavor. So I'll definitely be making some more. I've got them out on the tray because after I dehydrate them, I put them out overnight just to get any leftover moisture that might be in them out before I seal them in a canning jar. And here's our tomato paste on day 2. It is absolutely fabulous. Nice and smooth, thick, and ready to go. Fabulous tomato paste that I made in the crock pot. I'm going to spoon it into ice cube trays, and I'm going to put it in the freezer. I'll cover it with plastic wrap. I'm going to cover it with freezer wrap, and I'm going to put it in the freezer until it gets nice and hard. Then I'll take it out and put it in individual freezer bags. Because this saves space in my pantry, I don't have to can it. And when I need it for a recipe, each one of these is about 2 tablespoons. So I'll be able to figure if it calls for a 6-ounce can, then I know I need about 8 of these. And I can just get them out and let them defrost before I start my cooking. And it takes up very little space. Since I processed all my tomatoes in different ways on day 1, day 2 is going to be a breeze. The ones that I roasted are from my spaghetti sauce. And I already like the consistency, so it's not going to have to cook down that long. And over here in this pot is my tomato juice that I saved from all of the tomato projects I was working on yesterday. I'm letting it get nice and hot before I put it in my jars. And so to my spaghetti sauce, I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of garlic salt, 1 tablespoon of oregano, 1 tablespoon of Italian seasoning, some white sweet onion, Vidalia onion is what we like around here, some red and green peppers, and a couple tablespoons of minced garlic. I like a lot of garlic. Now, I'm just going to stir this, and I'm going to let it boil and cook down just a little bit more so it's a little thicker, but I don't want it too thick because I want to be able to take this spaghetti sauce, and if I want to make a marinara, I want to be able to thin it. If I want to use it as a pizza sauce, I want to be able to thicken it. So I want it just the right consistency. And the taste is going to be fabulous. So I'm just going to bring it to a boil, let it cook a little bit, and then it'll be ready to can. My spaghetti sauce is finally at a very low boil. And I'm only going to let it simmer until my jars here are hot and nice and sterilized. I did add 2 tablespoons of table salt to my tomato juice, but I did not add any table salt to my spaghetti sauce. And let me tell you the reason why. When you add salt to tomatoes, it actually enhances the sweetness. And I want more of the Italian flavors coming through instead of the sweet tomato. So, but this is just a base recipe for all of my viewers. Once again, if you want more oregano, more garlic salt, more whatever you want, go ahead and add it to your taste. This is just a base recipe. And I had a viewer bring it to my attention that you don't need to pre-sterilize your canning jars here if you're going to water bath can, because they will sterilize themselves when you put them in the water bath. And yes, in theory, that's true. But you also want your jars to be as hot as what you're putting inside the jars to keep anything from breaking. You also don't sterilize the inside of your jar unless you put it in hot water first. You're only going to get the outside. The inside won't be sterile. So that's my reasoning. That's the way I was taught, and that's the way I'm going to keep going. And pretty soon we're going to be putting the tomato sauce and the spaghetti sauce in the jars, and we're going to water bath both of those for 45 minutes due to the elevation where I live. And I'm going to add some lemon juice to the bottom of each jar. It's going to be 2 tablespoons for every quart. And you guys, isn't there something? I have absolutely no Italian on either side of my parents' lineage. Absolutely no Italian. But there is something about making homemade spaghetti sauce. It's kind of like St. Patrick's Day, where we all feel like we're Italian. I mean, we all feel like we're Irish. When you make your own spaghetti sauce, you feel like the little old Italian grandma, you know, making her family recipe. It smells so good and you're so proud of yourself. So I hope you'll give it a try. I'm going to start with my tomato juice here, which is nice and hot. I'm going to pour it in my jars here, and I'm going to leave about a ½ inch of headspace. I'm going to have to take the air bubbles out, just like you always do. Go all the way around the side. And do you see the bubbles on the top? We want to try to get rid of as many of those as we can. It's impossible to get rid of all of them, but as many as you can. So take your rubber spatula and just go around the outside edge here. There, that looks a lot better. Then you're going to take a damp paper towel or a very fine cotton or linen dish towel, and you're going to go around the rim. Do a little bit of the inside too. We don't want it to bubble up and keep our seal from sealing. Better safe than sorry. I also sometimes take my hand and go like this just to make sure I don't feel anything. Now, we want to make sure that we increase the acidity in our jars here. So we're going to add, for every quart, we're going to add 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. You cannot use, from what I've read, you cannot use fresh squeezed lemon juice because that throws off the pH somehow. So I'm using the real lemon juice. And let me get my lid. Just finger tight. It's been taking me a little bit of an effort to get these wide mouth on. There we go. That's plenty tight right there. I'm going to finish these other 2. This absolutely fabulous spaghetti sauce, I process the same way. I'm pouring it into my hot jars. And I'm going to leave a 1/2 inch headspace. Bubble it all the way around with a spatula, just like I did with the tomato juice. Add 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. Wipe the rims very well. There we go. And everything is going to be a hot water bath, the juice, and the spaghetti sauce for 45 minutes. Process them all the day before. Today, I was able to make what I wanted to out of it. And what I'm really proud of is nothing went to waste. I took the skins and I dehydrated the skins to make more tomato powder that I could add to my soups, to my stews, to my chili. And I also dehydrated some tomatoes so that I could throw those in as well, and they give it just a little bit of fresh tomato taste. So you guys remember, these are all just base recipes that I use that you can add to or take away, for your taste. But it really is helpful to do them the day before. Put your juice, put your sauce, put everything in the refrigerator, and then tackle it the next day, especially if you work like I do. And I want to point out, there is no easier way to make tomato paste than in the crock pot. And if you don't want to do it at night, do it in the day if you're home and if you can, and just keep an eye on it and stir it every now and then. But if you keep it on your very lowest setting, you can totally do it overnight like I did. So thanks for joining, you guys, and we're on to day 3. Well, we made it to day 3, and one thing I wanted to focus on for today was that this challenge doesn't have to just be for people who have big, humongous gardens and tomatoes and peppers and corn and everything that you normally see in a garden. You can be a homesteader and live a homesteading way of life no matter where you are. If you have a pot, you can plant a tomato in it. If you have an apartment, you can put it out on your patio. If you live in a trailer and you have a little bit of a front yard, you can put some things out there. It doesn't matter where you're at. You can live this kind of life. And to me, the Every Bit Counts challenge means every bit counts, not just what is out in the garden. So, for example, have you looked in your cupboards? Are there things up there that are going stale that you can use? Are there things up there that are going to go stale that you need to dry can or preserve a different way so that you can use them longer? One of the things I found around my kitchen this week was we had a cookout about a week and a half ago. Yeah, about a week and a half ago. And I had a whole bunch of hot dogs and hamburger buns left that I thought we would eat for sandwiches, but we haven't touched them. So they're going to go bad. And I need to do something with them. So today I'm going to make croutons out of them. And what we don't eat for dinner tonight in our salad, I'm going to put in the freezer. You can freeze them for 6 months to a year and use them in a lot of different ways other than just your salad. So I wanted you to think about that. I don't want people to be discouraged and say, oh, these are fun to watch, but it doesn't pertain to me. It can pertain to you, and let's try to focus on that today, okay? So let me show you what I've done. Over here, I have some cut up croutons already that I'm going to work on. I have a hamburger and a hot dog bun and a pizza cutter. And all I do is just slice these into little crouton-looking things. They don't have to be perfect. It's just for your household. The hamburger buns I found work better if I take them apart for some reason. To cut, watch your fingers. I'm not very dainty myself, so I have to be extra careful. But you're just going to cut them into bite sizes, just like a crouton would look. The hot dogs, when I do those, I just take them down the middle with my pizza cutter. and then just cut into little slices. So that they look like croutons. I've got my oven preheated to 375. And first thing I'm going to do is add the spices to these. So I'm going to take a quarter of a cup of olive oil. And to that, I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of sea salt, 1 teaspoon oregano, and a half a teaspoon of pepper. And I'm just going to mix that. This is a base recipe, just like all of my other recipes. Mess around with it, you guys. Add some Parmesan cheese to it if you want Parmesan croutons. If you want a little saltier taste, put some salt in there. It's whatever you like. This is just a basic recipe. Now we're going to take our breadcrumbs, our bread cubes here. We're just going to toss those around. Oh, my lasagna's ready. All right. Try to get those nice and coated. And I had quite a few breadcrumbs, so I'm probably going to have to do this again. So I'll do this to half, and then I'll do it again to another half. I sprayed my cookie sheet with Pam. And I believe I have these mixed up fairly well. They all feel damp. So I'm going to spread them on my cookie sheet here. And I'm going to bake them at 375 for 15 minutes. But I will keep an eye on them and turn them as needed as they are browning. And I have decided to get all fancy pants here. And I'm going to add some Parmesan cheese to these. And I wanted to show you what they look like before they go in the oven. So here you go. I'll show you what they look like when they come out. And day 3 is also time to get our tomato paste out of the freezer. So I've taken them out of their ice cube trays. I'm just going to trim them up a little bit. And they're going into a Ziploc freezer bag. And I can pull these out as I need them. Let them defrost slightly. It won't take them long to defrost because you see how big they are. They're not very big. And so I always had a problem before of I would be working on a recipe and I don't know why I would always forget tomato paste and I never kept it on hand. So for that one little jar, 6-ounce jar, I would have to go run to the store. This is the absolutely easiest way to make it and to preserve it. You guys, these are so good. I could pop in a movie and just keep eating the croutons. They're crisp, a little bit of salt, the cheese. They're just really good. They just taste so much different than the ones that you buy at the store. And here's my salad for tonight with my homemade croutons. So that's day 3. Use what you have. Don't let it go to waste. And we're on to day 4. So today I went out to the garden after work to see what I had to work with. And I got quite a few really nice green tomatoes, 1 cucumber, 1 pepper, and some lettuce. The lettuce I'm going to save for dinner tomorrow. We'll have some wilted lettuce. But I think what I'll do today for day 4 is I'm going to do something with these green tomatoes. One of my absolute favorite foods to eat besides chocolate cake are fried green tomatoes. I love them. And this is so easy. And you can get a lot out of just a few nice big tomatoes. So you take the core out, you take the blossom end off, and then you're just going to slice these thin. The recipe that I use for fried green tomatoes, I got out of Fanny Flagg's recipe book, and she wrote the book Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Stop Cafe, and I love that movie too with Kathy Bates, and it's an absolutely delicious recipe, and she uses buttermilk. You don't have to, but it really does enhance the flavor, I think. So I'm just going to keep cutting my tomatoes like this, and then we'll go on to step 2. After sterilizing my jars, I'm going to put my green tomatoes in and stack them up. I like using these tall, thin canning jars that are wide mouth because they stack up fairly nicely. And you just push them in there and push them down. And it's okay if you have big old fat slices like I do because they will push down eventually. There you go. You want them to be in there as tight as you can get them, with no spaces in between if you can help it. So in the wintertime, I like to have these at Thanksgiving. And it's really hard to find green tomatoes where I live when it's not summer. That's why I like doing this. So when you're ready to have them, you just take them out of the jars and put them on a paper towel and let them drain, and then pat them dry, and then use your recipe for fried green tomatoes and fry them up. And they taste as fresh as you picked them out of the garden. Now I'm going to try to leave a 1/2 inch headspace here. I can get a few more in there even. Okay, see how tightly I have those packed in there? Okay, so now I've got some water boiling over on the stove, and I'm going to pour some boiling water into each jar. So I've got my boiling water here, and I'm just going to pour it in each jar. It'll take it just a little bit, since it's packed so tightly, it's going to take it a little bit to get dribbled down there. See those air bubbles coming up? So just keep pushing and the water will go down. And we're going to continue pushing and adding water until they're mostly filled here in the body of the jar and over the top here, but we're still going to leave a 1/4 inch headspace. And then also to each jar, we're going to add 2 tablespoons of lemon juice for acidity. And we're going to do our jars the same way we always do, you guys, after I get them filled with water. We're going to push out the air bubbles on the side with our rubber spatula. Wipe the tops to make sure there's no debris on the tops that would keep them from sealing. And then put them in the water bath. And since I've been feeling kind of puny today, I hope you guys will forgive me if I go ahead and I do day 5 today as well. So just in case tomorrow I'm under the weather still, I'll still get my day 5 in. So I'm going to make my bread and butter pickles, which are my favorite. And I am going to use some Mrs. Wages. Now this is for refrigerator bread and butter pickles that I accidentally picked up, but I'm still going to use the mix and I'm still going to can them. It's the same thing. Okay, so I'm going to add 2 cups of vinegar. You want to use, I'll bring you guys down. And you want to use a non-reactive pot or your food will change colors or you'll ruin your pot. Okay, so here we go. 2 cups of vinegar. To that, I'm going to add 1.5 cups of sugar. And then a 1/2 cup of water. And the Mrs. Wages mix. And you know, like I told you in my last video, some of her mixes are good. This is really good. Some of them you have to add a bunch of stuff, to get them the way you like, but they're just very convenient. But this one really is good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on the stove and I'm going to bring it to a boil. The green tomatoes are boiling, and I'm going to let those process in my hot water bath canner for 45 minutes based on my altitude where I live. And I have over here my brine cooking for the bread and butter pickles. Looks like it's just getting ready to start to boil, and then we'll add that to our jars. I am deathly serious when I say that I could drink this brine right out of the pot. I love the taste of it. So I'm just filling each of my jars. And I want them to have a 1/2 inch headspace. So I'm going to push that down just a little bit. And we will do these just like we do all of our other jars. We are going to go around the outer rim with our rubber spatula to make sure we get the air bubbles out. Then we are going to wipe the tops here with a paper towel or a cotton dishcloth to make sure there's nothing on the rim that would prevent it from sealing. These will be hot water bathed for 10 minutes, and then I will turn the heat off and they will sit in the canner for 5 minutes, and then they're ready to remove. Hi everybody, welcome to day 6, and thank you for letting me cheat a little bit for day 5. I'm feeling better, but yesterday was rough, so I'm glad I did it ahead of time. So for day 6, I want to talk to you a little bit about one of the reasons why you homestead. My children are older, they're all adults, but they've seen me garden and my husband garden through the years. And what you hope is that they will want to maybe start a homesteading way of life for themselves, learn new things, learn how to grow their own food, or just start appreciating the value of healthy grown food. So I'm happy to say my son has caught the bug, and he spent all winter trying to figure out what he could do that I wasn't already doing to supplement the food supply. And he investigated corn. Now, where we live, one of the probably the best corn you can get is called the Illini Extra Sweet. And the whole family was encouraging him to grow that. But he did his own investigation for a long time, and he found a type of corn that was even higher rated than that. And boy, he was right. It was sweet. It was crunchy. It's bicolored. Beautiful. So I was really proud of that. And this is my son, and he grows corn, and he has had an exceptional bumper crop this year of this beautiful corn, and it is so delicious. And I want to find out, what kind of corn is this, first of all?
This is Temptress Hybrid. You can get it for about $14 a pack on gurneys.
On gurneys. And why? Because I know your dad was trying to get you to grow Illini extra sweet corn, which grows really good in our area here in the Midwest. Why did you go with Temptress?
Well, this is a tri-blend hybrid, and it's been proven to be super sweet, and the stalks provide great sugar and nutrients into this corn to make it one of the most sweeter corns on the market.
And it is beautiful, and it is sweet, and everyone has said that it's just delicious. How many pickings did you get out of the plot you put out this year?
Well, the last one that I just did, we gave away, I think it was 47 ears, and that was my second round. So including this, plus the first two, I very easily went over 100 ears on just a small 35-foot plot.
Yeah. And there's Mr. Re-Ritten, and there's my grand dog, Shaq. Shaq?
Say hi, Taggy.
Say hi, Shacky. Shacky the farmer. And there's Marshall Dillon.
That's a good one.
Okay, so how big would you say your plot is?
Probably 35, 40 feet, and that's in length. I would say width, 20 foot maybe.
Are you going to be expanding it next year, you think?
Probably. I already have people that were saying that they want some for this fall, and frankly, I've already given away most of it, so I think I need to expand the plot next year because I'm building up quite the base of people that like it.
Yeah. Now that your corn's done, are you going to do success? This is a hard word to say. Succession planting.
Yes.
In that. Okay, what are you going to plant?
I'm doing lettuce and carrots.
Lettuce and carrots
for fall harvest. Those also came off of gurneys.
You know, it's not too late for potatoes either.
No, but with just the size of my plot this year, I'm just going to do. I bought two packets of lettuce and 2 packets of carrots.
All right. Well, so we should have us some good root vegetables then.
That's right. That's right. Later on in the year, you can get you.
We're not cutting that out either.
Later on in the year, you could have you some of my sweet corn with your meal, along with some lettuce as a salad, and
all right,
you guys can have quite the feast.
Well, thank you for the interview.
Yes, thank you.
Needless to say, the family's been encouraging him to expand his plot next year so that we have a lot more. But while we were working on shucking the corn and freezing the corn, and we took some off the cob, we did some on the cob, I went ahead and I kept the cobs because I thought, if this corn, we know how good this corn is, can you imagine how good the corn cob jelly would be? And so that is what I'm going to work on today for day 6. So because I froze my corn cobs in bags of 8, I have about 16 ears here, but you can do this recipe with 12. But I'm just going to go ahead and use them up. So you're going to break your corn cobs in half so that you can fit them all into one pot. And you want the water to completely cover the tops of your corn. So I'm going to bring this to a boil. Once it comes to a boil, I'm going to reduce the heat and let it simmer for about 2 hours because I'm trying to make a corn juice. So I've got a nice little boil going on here, and every now and then I'm going to walk over here and take some of these air bubbles out. It'll just make for a prettier jelly. And I push these down too. And the kitchen smells like I'm cooking corn on the cob. So now that this is boiled, I'm going to reduce the heat and I'm going to let it simmer about 2 hours. Now that my cobs are done simmering, I have lined my colander here with some cheesecloth so that we can try to get a real pure looking jelly. And I'm going to strain it through here. Smells like cornbread. You can see there's a lot of kernels left down at the bottom there that I want to catch. And I did. So now what I'm left with is a beautiful golden juice. Isn't that pretty? And there's nothing floating in it. So now I'm going to put this back in my non-reactive pan and add the rest of my ingredients and start making some jelly. I measured out 3 cups of my corn cob juice here, and to that I'm going to add 1.75 ounces of pectin. And I'm just going to continue to stir that and bring that to a boil. Now that I have the cob juice and the pectin at a boil, I'm going to add 3 cups of white sugar. I'm going to stir that and I'm going to bring that back up to a boil. And then I'm going to let it boil for 5 minutes. And now I'm going to take my hot jelly mixture and I'm going to pour it in the jars and leave a 1/4 inch headspace. A little more. There we go. And to each jar, I'm going to get the foam off of the top the best I can. So I'm going to take a rubber spatula and just wipe all the way around the edge here. Try to pick out what I can. And I'm also going to take my rubber spatula and go all the way around the outside and try to get those air bubbles to come up to the top. Okay, so now I'm going to go all the way around the outer rim to make sure there's nothing on that top there that's going to keep my lid from sticking. And I'm going to use a wet paper towel . Then I'll put my lid on and my band, and I'm going to process these for 5 minutes in a boiling water bath. So we made it to day 7 of the last week. Yippee! All I have left really to harvest in my garden are tomatoes, potatoes, sweet potatoes. I think that's it. Everything is about gone now. Corn cob jelly is probably one of my favorite jellies other than strawberry. I love it. And I have some leftover corn juice from my batch of jelly. So today I'm boiling some more cobs and I'm going to make some more juice and I'm going to make some corn cob syrup for our pancakes. And I hope you'll join me. I've got my corn cob juice here heating up. I have 8 cups. And to that, I'm going to add 1/4 cup of molasses, I'm just using the molasses that I have, but the darker the molasses, the richer the flavor. So 1/4 cup of that, and then 4 cups of brown sugar. See if I can, there we go. And I'm just gonna mix that all up until it gets to a little thicker consistency. I'm gonna bring it to a boil and let it simmer for a bit, and then we'll check on our syrup. After letting my syrup boil to about 215 to 230 degrees, so you want to use your candy thermometer, I added 1/4 cup of clear gel and 1 tablespoon of vanilla. Let it boil for another 5 minutes, and look what I got. An absolutely beautiful, dark brown, nutty tasting pancake syrup. Try to give you an idea of the consistency here. And as it cools, it's going to thicken up even more. But it is delicious. So I'm going to process these 10 minutes in the hot water bath. I will do like I always do. I'll go all the way around to get out the air bubbles. Skim off any air bubbles on top. Clean the tops and put my hot lids and bands on and process for 10 minutes. So guys, if you don't like maple syrup because you think it's way too sweet, and I've heard people say that, you know, it's way too sweet, so they just put butter on their pancakes or biscuits or whatever, you might want to give the corncob syrup a try. It's got more of a nutty kind of caramel taste, and it's not too sweet. It's great. It's a great recipe. I hope you give it a try. Thanks for joining me for the last 7 days, you guys. This month has been really something. I'm wrapping it up, though. We're starting to close down the garden. Still have a few things left, but for the most part, it won't be an everyday process. So we'll be able to get back to side dish Sundays and one thing Wednesdays, and we've got to get back to reading our book, too, The Doll Maker by Harriet Arno. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you'll join me again. I'll see you later this week.